Hey, everybody, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kirby. And of course, we bring together all the fun guests and all the awesome people to help your nonprofit thrive, do more good in your community. Well, sometimes we talk about things that probably aren't top of your mind, but should. So today's guest is going to talk about all of those fun things. Rob Shavell, he is the co-founder of Abine and DeleteMe. Rob, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast.
Thanks for having me, Patrick.
I'm very excited. In our pre-show conversation, I know exactly what type of show this is going to be, which is awesome. So everybody should stick around and listen to this. Specifically, one of the things I never thought about as a nonprofit leader, somebody that is someone who's been in the seat, cyber attacks. I don't think about it at all. I thought about it when I actually clicked on the spam link once, then shut down our entire email system for 2 days. That was fun. That's a story to share with you in a minute, but I don't think about cyber attacks, cybersecurity at all. Why on earth are we talking? I would love to hear kind of a 5,000-foot view of who Rob is, what Abine is, what DeleteMe is. Why are we talking today?
Yeah, well, first of all, never predict awesomeness from somebody in technology and security and privacy, because mainly we're sort of boring, nerds that think about things that nobody else wants to think about all day, which you already told your audience. But look, a little bit about me. I'm an entrepreneur, and I like to try to think about things that maybe are, for lack of a better word, contrarian. So around 10 years ago, when Facebook was still not a public company, if we can remember back that far, and you couldn't even get on Facebook unless you were like a college student, if we can remember back then. I and some much smarter entrepreneurs from MIT got to talking about all this social media stuff. And we said, hey, all this data sharing is great, but there's going to be repercussions from it. And really, wouldn't it be nice if we could control our data a little bit better? Make it private when we wanted to, share it when we wanted to, and not accept everybody else's sort of big tech approach to sharing is always good. So we started this company, and for lack of a better word, called it the Online Privacy Company. And here, 10 years later, I am talking about these issues that are not necessarily why anyone gets up in the morning, which is to get privacy. They don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's such a fascinating topic to me. And again, I don't remember the beginning of Facebook because I was headstrong into MySpace. So I was getting in trouble by ranking my friends and who I cared about the most, first of all. But let's go back to that time, because it was an interesting. I think we've got such short memories where we didn't give away any information and nobody knew anything about us. And all of a sudden now, the benefits of we get to know people we never would have gotten to know, and we know intimate details about them through any stalking you can do on the internet, to we never gave away our information. The benefits there, we can match well with people like in our nonprofits, people who would be matched well with our mission, who would have the capacity to give, et cetera. Why on earth should we be worried about any of this? Because this seems like a harmless fun that I get to share my photos and things online. And especially in the nonprofit world, why should we be concerned with privacy, with data, and all things cybersecurity?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, probably too long to get into, a big conversation today, and then we end up not having an awesome show. But look, I think there's security reasons why we don't want to spread our data around everywhere and tell all of the world, what our passwords might be and, where we might have accounts and things like that. And pretty soon emails show up like the one that showed up in your inbox, Patrick, and links that can confuse you or take down the network. So there's sort of a set of security reasons to be a little bit more careful with how much information we're putting out about us that's sort of personal. And then there's privacy reasons, and the privacy reasons are a little bit more a little bit less concrete, and I think only in the last couple of years have a good portion of Americans started to realize, and really after it wasn't so much with Edward Snowden. We saw this stuff at our business. It wasn't so much with the data breaches at Equifax that we all heard about. We're like, okay, whatever, my credit card covers me. It's really only been, I think, since the election and all the discussion about the meddling in the election and the Netflix social dilemma and sort of the concept of ads not just following us around on the internet, but sort of a broader concept of, oh, okay, well, we're being targeted with ideas that are trying to influence us. And, our children, if there are any parents out there, are being similarly targeted. And maybe that's not as innocent as I saw an ad for something that I like. And so what's really happened is it started off as an innocent data sharing. And I actually think Mark Zuckerberg wanted to bring the world together and, do good things. And I think there are a lot of good things about social graphs and social networks, just like you said, and we all rely on them in the tech industry, including nonprofits, to go target audiences and figure out who has a shared bias to engage and all that good stuff. But the problem is that the data about us has proliferated so much, and we all know that we're creating more and more data every day. Hi Siri, hi Alexa, turn on your smart TV. I mean, these are new data sources that we never had, even a couple of years ago. So we're creating an incredible digital trail. And unfortunately, the last decade, the technology industry has gotten better and better and more sophisticated at using that data. And it's not all for good purposes.
Let's talk a little bit about targeting ads. And I think in a way, how that feels from a donor's perspective in the realm of harassment. I know that if you click on an ad that I find interesting, that I'm going to be inundated for the next 48 hours with crap, the same sort of stuff, because they figured out how the algorithm works and blah, blah, blah. No, I just wanted to look at the thin wall at once. I don't need 50 ads from it, but I'm going to get pursued by this. Walk me through kind of why our nonprofits should be worried, or our nonprofits should be cognizant of what it feels like as a donor to be harassed by targeted ads. Because as a nonprofit, this is the best way to get in front of those people, like you just mentioned. But what's the balance there, or how can we avoid?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure there's a great way to get away from that particular issue. As a donor to different charities myself, and a big believer in sort of modern philanthropic approaches to giving, I understand that if I do something, I'm going to be targeted to do more of it, and so on and so forth. It is a little bit, I think, annoying to all donors that you can't just really give a one-time gift anymore and expect to be left in peace. And I do think that and this is tangential to anything that we do in our business, but putting myself in, just speaking for myself, I would love it if nonprofits exposed an option for me that let me at least voice as a donor my preference to be one and done. Now, I know they don't want to do that for obvious reasons, but like, if you let me do that, I might actually donate more, or give me the option to be contacted once a year or something like that. Instead of let me choose the level of harassment that you're going to give me after I've already engaged and had a positive experience with what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a nice choice. And it goes to something that, we talk about in the privacy area, us privacy nerds talk about, which is this concept of privacy by design. More institutions, we would like to see more institutions exposing different options to their customers that show an appreciation for this topic and for this, potential issue. And you can design that into, your processes. It's not like rocket science. So let me pause. But at the end of the day, look, you got to target some people. You can limit the amount of retargeting you do. But this is how we do business in the modern age, and I think everybody sort of expects a certain amount of it, just don't go overboard.
I think that's such a wonderful point. And I think it gives nonprofits an out and an advantage in the field compared to everybody else if you are calling or engaging them to say, hey, listen, we know that you gave a gift and you're in our system and you're now in our hearts. We've got a typical response rate of this. We're going to send you this. We're going to send you this. We're going to send you this. I just wanted to call you personally, A, to say thank you, and B, how much do you like to hear from us? We want to make sure that you know what your gifts have done. We know that we want to make sure that you know what your impact has been made, but we don't want to go overboard. I wonder what that would be like from a donor's perspective of saying, wow, nobody's ever reached out to me like this. You now have a more intimate relationship with that individual who gave in the first place. And now you know exactly how they like to be reached out. So you are going above and beyond what everybody else is doing.
Totally. And I think, for those out there interested in trying this, I mean, be data driven about it. I believe if you gave these kind of choices like you just talked about, especially to your biggest donors, the HNWs that account for 80% of your funding, I bet you're going to further those relationships and drive more dollars on a go-forward basis than if you didn't try these kind of more sophisticated approaches about how do they want to be contacted and engaged with So we're speaking the same language.
And I think it's more purposeful. So if you can use the technology and you can use analytics and you use the data that you have as a nonprofit executive or a fundraiser, and that this individual likes handwritten thank you notes, well, then get them off of your email list. You've got the email sitting there anyway. Get them off that and get into your handwritten note. Now your contacts are purposeful. They know they're more meaningful. You're taking time out of your day to sort of document some of those things. Documentation we talked a lot about on the show, which is the most boring thing to a fundraiser because we're people, right? So we want to go, hey, and talk and have coffees and blah, blah, blah. Nobody wants to document any of this stuff. But if you
they don't want to do cybersecurity either.
No, they don't really want to do that at all. That sounds like the worst and most boring thing. But I think that conversation about cybersecurity, that conversation about harassment and what they want starts with get your back end right. Make sure that you are not inundating people and annoying them so that they have a turn on rather than a turn off, I think, in the first place. So I love that as a purposeful thing. I know that you mentioned in some of the things you talk about and in the pieces that you speak about and write about is that nonprofits are uniquely vulnerable to cyber attacks. Is this a thing? Is this a thing that we need to worry about, and why?
Well, I think nonprofits need to worry about, different things, and we all have different priorities. And like I said, cyber attacks and privacy, are not the reason why we wake up in the morning. As you said, a lot of times we're people, and we're trying to do good. So you have to put these things in perspective. I think that's very important. But that said, I do think, and we see this in our DeleteMe business a tremendous amount these days. There's a growing demand, and because there's a growing number of incidents and threats, specifically to nonprofits. And in some ways, I'm going to pivot our conversation to the other side of harassment. So instead of harassing through advertising and marketing donors and so on, what our DeleteMe service does is respond to the other side of harassment, where actually executive directors and employees in nonprofits are getting harassed online, and they are getting increasingly harassed for different reasons. But one of the root causes of it is their personally identifiable information is exposed and easy to find in public. Mm-hmm. And so that is then being used to, send emails, dox people, harass them, figure out where their house is, these kinds of different threats that are that can become cybersecurity threats if there's a hacker involved, but they also can be categorized as purely kind of online harassment and trolling kind of threats. And so those are the kind of things that we have seen nonprofits, particularly over the last couple of years, experiencing in an abnormally high frequency versus other industries. And I think there's some reasons for that.
It's interesting. I've seen that recently, more recently now that you mention it, and for two parts. One, it's what you do in your community, right? So if you are in an organization that's dealing with social services or human services, that becomes a political football for others to comment on. Homelessness, individuals where they're like, no, your personal responsibility should do this, and why are you giving people money this way? And they're now harassing you from a political perspective because of what you're trying to do to lift up those that you're trying to serve. But the other one that I've noticed really interesting is if you are hiring in the nonprofit world and you're not hiring at a rate that is acceptable, or it's $15 an hour for this, you got to be kidding me. And now they're chasing after you for a standard by which the trolls on the internet are harassing you, and now they've got your profile and they're calling you out as a director. Now, it's something that nobody's going to think about, and you're not going to get everyday harassment on these things. But again, like you said, it's something that we haven't seen before because nobody has had the audacity to anonymously attack on the internet things that they want to be keyboard warriors about for no apparent reason other than their pure boredom.
Yeah, it's exactly what you're talking about, which is what we're seeing. And it's look, almost every nonprofit in some way, shape, or form in today's America is doing something controversial to somebody. It doesn't matter if you think that you're doing the most innocuous thing in the world, supporting the local school, magnet school system or public school system or something that seems totally uncontroversial. All of a sudden, you're mired in controversy. There's politics. Everything is being politicized. And so, unfortunately, when you marry that kind of macro environment up with the internet and you Google somebody's name, because nonprofits are public serving, they have their contact information typically out there, or they're talking to their donors and constituents and so forth. What you'll find is these data brokers advertising the most salacious, intimate details, in a profile that you can buy about anybody for 99 cents. You can find out their home address and net worth and children's names and vehicle information and just stuff that would, if you put it into a threatening anonymous message or a hacker puts it into a convincing impersonation email, is disturbingly accurate, and so it's just a sign of the times, if you will. But it's an increasing problem, and that's why we're seeing, in our particular business, we've noticed that nonprofits are coming to us and saying, "Hey, can you just sign up my executive directors? Can you sign up my team? Can you just make sure that we have a lower digital footprint, a lower profile when somebody's Googling us? Obviously, we want the content that we want to have online show up on Google, but we don't want all this other stuff to show up so easy."
It's so funny that we, in the nonprofit world, we live these two separate lives, right? So one of them is we want to be exposed to as many people as possible so we can get our message across to as many people as possible to find and mine those that would resonate with our mission. And at the same time, we're getting, you're mentioning that you're exposing yourself now to people who might use that for nefarious things. And so what can you do to kind of maintain your SEO for your organization and yet pull back your personal information at the same time? Ironically, the type of information that you can buy for 99 cents is exactly the type of information we as fundraisers want to know. We want to know the net worth of somebody that we're having a conversation with, where they live, what their house number is, what their Zillow worth on the house is, because we can estimate how much that individual has the capacity to give our organization. How on earth are we to manage both the need for information on how much we can expect to have or who we're supposed to get, and respect the privacy and the individual that we're trying to serve. I'm so confused, Rob. Help.
It's a great point. And look, there's that we have to deal with a increasingly data-driven and complex world. I think that from an individual's perspective, there needs to be a better compartmentalization of the personal from the professional online. And it's just what you're talking about. Yeah, I want SEO. Yeah, I need to engage with as many people as possible. Great. But like at the same time, don't make it so darn simple for anyone, for any reason, an angry former employee, an ex spouse, a insurance agency, a competitor, to make it personal, to cross that line from the professional world into the personal world. And I think, unfortunately, that's what's happening more and more, because in any controversial area, emotions come into play and people cross that line. So, I think, of course, businesses need to run on data. And of course, there are needs for sophisticated targeting from businesses, and nonprofits in particular feel like, since they're doing good, what's the harm? And, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that's the reality of how we do business today. But you should but as an ethical and responsible business, you need to respect boundaries. You wouldn't go use that information to ever do something that was outside the parameters of the business that you're running and the organization and the goals that you have, hopefully. And the problem is that many other people are not so respectful out there in today's day and age. So again, I think the answer is not simple, but compartmentalization. One side is your personal life and one side's your professional life, and let's try to keep that line as clear between the two as we can.
And it's also interesting too, and that's where I think a lot of nonprofit fundraisers particularly get a little wary or a little nervous, is because the deeper the rapport with somebody on an individual's basis, the better relationship you can then extract that leads them to a more intimate and positive relationship with your organization. So a lot of these nonprofit leaders, myself included, I'm one of the hacks that did this too, was I became friends with potential donors and potential and current major givers. They leaned on me for personal advice in other realms of my life. And that I knew in the back of my head, because I have built this trust and relationship with them, that they would probably pick up the phone to answer when I had a financial need at the organization. Not to exploit that, because, I like to consider myself one of the good ones. But that becomes a trust issue that if you would ever exploit from a organization's side, well, then now you're doing a disservice for all the hard work that you did. That one negative experience that you use for a personal gain is now sort of thrown under. And then now you're ruining the relationships of other people who now won't trust your organization to tell you things because they know of this either security breach or breach of trust, et cetera. Outside of training, and outside of just this moral code that you want to initiate within your organization, what are some of the steps that you can do to prevent that from going haywire?
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, I get it, and I think we all get it. Human relationships and the kind of relationships you need to foster are complex, and they're going to bridge divides between the personal and the professional. That is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about the use of data specifically before a real relationship, a real human relationship has been put in place. And that is where I think there needs to be a very bright line. It is not once a human relationship is already in place, because all of us are always we're always dancing around those
Right.
lines. Hey, you know, what's personal, what's professional,
Yeah.
you know, and where should we take it? And as the trust builds, that naturally blends. So it's, you know, clearly that is different from taking data and assuming that you can then have some kind of personal relationship before there really is a personal relationship. And that's what I'm saying is absolutely wrong. But unfortunately, that's what's being exploited by both hackers to try to get into networks and send emails like the one you clicked on, phishing and spear phishing and all this stuff. It's a significant vector of attacks that shut down people's networks, including nonprofits. And you know, everyone's heard of these ransomware attacks where you come into your computer, you know, in the morning and everything's encrypted, and there's a Bitcoin address for you to send, you know, send it to get your information decrypted. Nobody wants this stuff to happen, so you need to be a little bit careful about, you know, what information is out there that could be used to exploit your security, but also it could be used for anyone to potentially harass you. So what can you do about it? You know, look, be a little bit more vigilant about what information you share with who. But at the end of the day, it's very hard, right? We all live modern lives, and you know, we don't get up in the morning, you know, to not do things. We're doing things constantly. We're leaving a digital trail constantly. So, you know, I think that's one of the reasons why, and I'm going to shill our DeleteMe service just a little bit. It's one of the reasons why, you know, that's become popular, because people want to go live their lives and get on with it. And yet they want a modicum of coverage and protection from all that growing amount of personal information that's being sucked up on the internet and being used by data brokers for all kinds of reasons. And you know, one of the things I believe in as an entrepreneur is that you have to take pain away from people. And if they don't want to have to deal with this, that's why you know, we offer DeleteMe. You sign up in 5 minutes, and all year long we go out. We have real privacy experts that go out and find where your information resides, where you and your family's data is posted, including things like your cell phone and your home address and different email addresses and past addresses. And we let you know, hey, who's got it out there, who's exposing it on Google, who's selling it, and we remove it. We actually do the work to remove it for you and opt you out of those databases. And so over time, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, there is a tremendous reduction in the amount of exposed personal information out there about you. We don't delete anything related to your nonprofit. We don't delete anything that would affect SEO. We just delete this stuff that could be used and abused by the wrong folks at an unexpected time. So that's one thing that you can do. And you know, our prices start at $129 a year, and you know, it's not nothing, but it's not you know, some super expensive consulting thing. And it does measurably improve your privacy and reduce the risk of phishing and cyber attacks.
And I think one of the things that I think nonprofits just have to keep top of mind too is that you house an incredible amount of data and information on your donors. You are responsible for their privacy. You are, because if you have in your database and your CRM system the amount of money that they've been giving over the last 20 years or the last 5 years, and you have data on, you know, when they sent a gift and their check number and all these kind of things, that is invaluable to a group of people who could sell that on the black market. So you are having to think about these things as an organization. You brought up something interesting too, and I want to get to it before we sort of wrap up the show too, is the security when you've got an encrypted computer and everybody gives you that Bitcoin. Is there an advantage in cryptocurrency as a donation because of the security benefits thereof? Because I think a lot of nonprofits need to switch to an option in which cryptocurrency can be accepted as gifting. But what are the advantages and why? Because I think it's confusing to most people. If you're not into Ethereum and you're not into a Bitcoin, this is kind of a world that is very new and weird. But is there an advantage to having this as an option for your donors to give?
Well, I'm going to just answer yes, emphatically. I'm a little biased because being in the privacy world, I've watched the crypto markets sort of grow up, and they have a lot of growing up to do yet. But as you see banks and institutions and card networks like Visa and MasterCard join in the support of some of these protocols, what you're seeing, in my opinion, is really a rewiring of what was a very, very old financial system that was segregated into each country's different financial protocols. And if you've ever traveled, you know what I'm talking about, because it's a pain in the butt to use money in different countries and things like that. And what's really happening underneath the whole crypto markets is that this whole world is getting rewired into a software-driven financial system that is inherently global. So I do think it's important for nonprofits and the executives that run them to understand that this is not there's absolutely an aspect of a casino here that's ridiculous, and you can poo-poo it all you want. That's fine. But at the same time, something as big and broad as a global rewiring of the financial system is a big deal, and you need to at least form an opinion, pay attention to it. It's probably going to, it's taken 10 years for Bitcoin to get where it is, and it's probably going to take another 10 or 20 years before this, this whole ecosystem really matures. At the same time, you've got two things happening. One is, I think, looking into accepting donations in crypto makes it easier for crypto holders, who I think are largely the donors of tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
These are the millennials that have gotten rich quickly in a lot of cases, or who are on the cutting edge of creating companies that will create a lot of value. So if you're looking for that next, that next group, that next cohort of donors, meet them where they already are, and you can set up the ability to accept different cryptocurrencies on your website, very easily. You have to make sure your finance and audit people, after they get sick to their stomach and come out of the bathroom, know what they're doing in terms of recording the transactions and everything. But at the end of the day, the good news is all these transactions are literally on blockchains, and so there's a great audit trail, and so on and so forth. So I would say yes. That was the long answer to your question.
No, I like it, and I love that you mentioned that this is the younger generation's version of their wealth contribution to this too. So and again, get it while it's hot, where there's no your tax liability when they have donations through crypto is zero at this point. The federal government is not caught up with the amount of money that they can sort of banter back and forth for your gift through crypto to your nonprofit. So they're not, your capital gains are not an issue at this point. So take it while you can. And you're now engaging and saying that your nonprofit cares about the individuals who have money blocked in this world, and you're now providing them an avenue. And if you can be one of the first ones to do that, well, then you become ahead of the curve with everybody else. And again, it's more simple than you think it is. There's 1.5 million companies out there trying to figure out their position in the world that are making this life a lot easier for you as well. And that's super great. And again, any type of activity that Visa and MasterCard latch onto, it's going to be fine, because they're not investing any money that's not going to be beneficial to them. Therefore, they've already visioned the future, so you can trust it. It's going to be around for a while too. Rob, this has been so helpful, I think, just to kind of get this to the front of our brain. Again, a lot of the nonprofit world does not think about cybersecurity. They don't think about privacy enough, I think. And again, this is not to scare people into not doing stuff. Just acknowledging that this exists, acknowledging that you need to think about it at a minimum, just a little bit, and then just be cognizant of the fact that what you put out there can be used for nefarious uses. And then having people like you that have DeleteMe and Abine just to kind of help out with this is very nice. So people are interested in getting your services and products, and at least talking to you about what you can do and provide to their nonprofit or their individual accounts, how do they get a hold of you?
Easiest way is to go to the website. It's joindeleteme.com, and all the information, support, phone numbers, however you want to, carrier pigeons, however you want to get in touch with us, it's all there. And if you want to reach me personally, it's just Rob, R-O-B, at abine.com. That's the corporate email address. So happy to talk to anyone, and pleasure for me to think about some of these issues that you all are thinking about, and I look forward to potentially becoming a donor to some of the good things that you guys are doing.
Well, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate your perspective. And for an IT guy, I think we had a hell of a conversation. So I appreciate you, good sense of humor to do this as well. I will put all of those links in the show notes too. So make sure that after this show, go click on that, go find Rob, go find out what they do, schedule a call, because I think it makes sense for you to at least start thinking about some of those things. Rob, thank you for being a guest on this episode of the official Do Good Better podcast.
Thanks for having me.